Okay, we'll begin from the bottom of Vavim with Beis, 4 lines up from the bottom. So the background of what we're talking about was, by now we really have 3 opinions. We saw in the Mishnah 2 opinions. That the Rabbanan said, the first opinion said if you would do the kmitza with your left hand, it's no good, and therefore this whole mincha is totally puzzle. The second opinion in the Mishnah was Ben Beseira, who said if you do it with your left hand, it's okay. We saw in the Gemara that it's not only if you do it with your left hand, it's even if a Zar, a non-Kohen, would do it, it's also okay. And then within that opinion, we really had a machlokas. What would be if you got to the next step? Not only did you take it out, but you even put it in the next kli sharis. You put it in the next kli, which is the next step of the mincha process. So is Ben Beseira only saying it's okay because you just took it out? Or is he even saying it's okay if you took it out, the person took it out with his left hand and did the next step also? Those were the 3 opinions. So the Gemara 4 lines up from the bottom says, Maskifler of Nachman, Mai kasavri hani tanoi. How are you supposed to understand these opinions that say it's only a problem when you take it out and put it in the next step? If when somebody does, let's say a Zar, a non-Kohen does this, if we recognize that as an avoda, as he did something, so afagav delo avid le matan kli. So then even just taking it out should be a problem. And if you're going to tell me that when an improper person does it, basically we kind of like ignore it. The Torah doesn't consider that something really happened to it. So kika avid le matan kli. So then when he did the next step, why does it make it worse? In other words, the Gemara is assuming taking it out is one process, putting it in the next kli is the second process. So why would it be that you need, if you just did one, it's okay, but once you do 2, it's not okay? My answer is Hadar Amar Rav Nachman L'olam Avodehi. Really, when like a non-Kohen does it, it is avoda. It is called that he did something. Basically, they're saying the taking out and the putting in is really 2 halves of one whole. It's not taking it out as one step and putting it in as the next step. It's really one big process. And therefore, they hold that it's not finished until he really did both steps of the one process. He took it out and put it into the next kli. Okay, so these next words at the bottom of Vavim Beis, the sheet on the side of the page actually takes out these words. So let's jump to the top of Zayin Amud Aleph. So ask the Gemara, so again, we're still in the opinions that say if you take out if a non-Kohen would take out the mincha, then he could put it back in. But if he took out the kmitza from the mincha and then put it in the next kli, then it's a problem. So ask the Gemara, why would there be a difference if he takes it out and puts it in a different kli, or if he takes it out and puts it back into the same kli? In other words, if you hold it's a problem, if you do 2 steps, if you take it out, if a non-Kohen would take it out and put it into a kli sharis, this sanctified kli, so then whether it's a different kli or you put it back originally where you took it from, both of them really have the same status of a kli sharis. So why are you saying there's a difference? If you put it to a different kli, it's a problem. Ask the Gemara, if you put it back into the same place you took it from, in halacha that should really have the same status as putting it into a different thing. Because they're both a kli sharis. So we'll basically, in both scenarios, we'll see it. You did both steps. You took it out, and you did the second step of putting it back into a different kli. So Amar Rabbi Yochanan Zos Omeres Kli Sharis Ein Mekadshin Elamidas. From this question, you see that if a person, that basically when a person puts something into a kli sharis, into this sanctified, it only creates halachas if the person had in mind to do it. In other words, different times in these of kudshim, you have to put something into a kli sharis, right? When you originally bring the mincha, you originally bring the materials with you. So the first step is you put into a kli sharis. So let's say a person put it in and wasn't thinking. He thought he was putting it down on the floor, and it happened to be it went into this kli sharis. So the question would be, does the halacha make it that it sanctifies it just because it's inside of that kli, into that item, or does the person have to have it in mind when he actually puts it there? So again, the question was, it's clear when you if a non-Kohen would take out the kmitza, put it into a different kli, kli, so then it was clear that it would be a problem. But they said if you would take it out and you would put it back into the original kli that you took it from, it's okay. So the question is, what's the difference? Both of those are really the same. So Rabbi Yochanan answering, so you see from here that you need intention to create the halachic status when you put it into the kli. So when you put it into a new one, the way the person views it as he's changing something, he's doing the next step in the process. When you put it back into the original one, the person doesn't think he's doing anything. So as much as you're right, it's in a kli, but since the person didn't realize he was doing anything, so then basically it's not called he did the second step. It's basically seen as all he did was take it out, and it's like he never put it anywhere. So that would answer why if you put it in a different kli, it's a problem. When you put it back in the original kli, it would be okay. So the Gemara says, you see from Rabbi Yochanan, hamidas mekadshin. It sounds like from Rabbi Yochanan, but if you would do it with the intention, then it would make it sanctified. But Rish Lakish really asked that from Rabbi Yochanan, or in Zayin Amud Aleph, about 4 lines down. He asked him a question. If somebody does something improperly, a non-Kohen does it, so does the Kli Sharis, is it able to sanctify that thing? Okay, so until now we were assuming it could. Just there's a rule that you have to have it in mind when you put it in. The Gemara is saying, it sounded from what you were saying that if the non-Kohen who did this kmitza and put it into the kli, then it would for sure sanctify it. But this question itself, Reish Lakish asked from Rabbi Yochanan, and he answered, V'amrlei ein mekadshin. And he answered that even if you had the proper thoughts, if a non-Kohen put something into the Kli Sharis, it doesn't do anything. So we have a contradiction. On the one hand, Rabbi Yochanan just said that the only reason it doesn't work is because the non-Kohen didn't have it in mind. But it was clear that if the non-Kohen would have had it in mind, it would work. But from here, Rabbi Yochanan responded that if the non-Kohen would put something into the Kli Sharis, it doesn't work at all. My answers, so the Amr Lei, again, the sheet on the side takes it out. So, Ein Mekadshin Li Kariv or Mekadshin Li Pasal. The Gemara answers, it's not, if the non-Kohen does it, it's not Mekadesh it doesn't sanctify it Li Kariv, to allow it to then be brought on the Mizbeach. Aval Mekadshin Li Pasal. But it is called that you put it into a Kli Shares in order to mess it up, that it's called that a non-Kohen just did the Avoda. In other words, there's a double standard. For the leniencies, in a sense, to allow it that the carbon was done, and then you can go bring this on the Mizbeach. If a non-Kohen does it, it doesn't have that status. However, to make it that we did step 2, we took it out and even put it into a different Kli to make it that now the whole carbon was done by an improper Kohen, and therefore you're going to have to throw out the whole thing. So in other words, for the stringencies, it is called that if a non-Kohen does it and puts it into the Kli, that it's okay. Okay, so now the Gemara is going back to the original question. The original question was, why if the non-Kohen takes it out and puts it into a different utensil, then it's a problem? Because you said he did 2 steps. He took out the kmitza improperly and he put it into a Kli. Ask the Gemara, when you put it back in the original Kli, it should be the same thing. So we had one answer. Now Rav Amram is going to say a different answer to that question. So Rav Amram Amar kegon shechziru levisa gedusha umekamitz. Basically, you put it back. Let's say you had a Kli filled up all the way to the top. Okay, so now when the person put it back, what he put back was actually above the surface level of the utensil. Because it's above the surface level of the utensil, it's not called that it's inside of the Kli. It's not called inside of the utensil. So since he put it on top, so therefore basically, if you would put it in a different Kli, there's nothing inside of there. And that's why if the non-Kohen took it out and put it in, it would be a problem. Why were we saying if you put it back in the original one, it's okay? Because we're talking about a case where it's totally filled up. So anything you put on top is actually going to be on top of the surface level. So it was never inside the walls of the Kli. Ask the Gemara, Heichi Kamatz. If you're right, so then the original taking out didn't even work. Because you also took out from something that was never inside of the Kli. My answer is, you put it back. So now the case was originally, let's say it was totally filled. You took something out which was from inside the walls of the Kli. Okay? Now when you take it out, so most of the top is still flat. A little bit has a hole in it from where you took. You put it back on the part which was still flat, which was above the surface level. So when you took it out, it was okay, because you took from within the walls of the Kli. When you put it back on above the surface level. The cave and the kamatz le'avad le'guma. So the Gemara is speaking that out. Once you took the kmitza, once you took it out originally, you made a little hole. Ki mahader legavei demana kamahader le. So when you put it back, you really put it on the flat edge along the side of the Kli. Mechi mahader le monach le adafna demana, and it was there. Umonid le v'nafal memela, and then basically fell into the hole. So it ended up getting inside of the walls of the Kli, but it didn't get there because the person put it down. Whereas it's like a monkey did it. Basically, as much as if a person, this opinion is assuming, if a person put something in the Kli without intention, it would still sanctify it, it would still be Mekadesh it. That's only when the person's actions did it. Here, he put it on the flat part, and then by itself it trickled down to the other part. So that, it's not coming from the person's actions. So it's like if a wind blew and it fell into the Kli. So that's the second answer why if a person would put it into a different utensil, it would be a problem, but putting back into the same one's okay. Because again, the case was that it was a flat surface. You took a little out. When you put it back, you put it onto the remaining flat surface, and then it just trickled down by itself. Amr le Reb Yirmiyah le Reb Zera. V'lukma kegon shechziru lekli hamunach al gabe karka. So he suggests I would have had a third answer. Again, the question we're dealing with is why it was clear if a non-Kohen takes it out and puts it into a different Kli, then it's a problem. But if the non-Kohen would take it out and put it back into the original Kli, it was okay. So Reb Yirmiyah says, why didn't they answer that you put it back into a Kli that's on the floor? Basically, he's saying if it would be true that if the utensil's on the floor, preferably it's supposed to be picked up by the Kohen. So if it would be true that if it was on the floor, it wouldn't have the halachic status of being put into a Kli. So why didn't they say that answer? If they didn't say that answer, it would sound like they're assuming even if you would put it onto the Kli that's on the floor, it's still okay. That's what Reb Yirmiyah is proving from their conversation earlier. He would have had a third answer, and nobody said it, so it must be they hold that if you put it into a Kli that's on the floor, that's not a problem. As much as the Kohen's supposed to hold it, if you would put it on the floor, it's still okay. Okay, so really the Gemara is equating two things right now. Until now, we've been discussing, can you, after you took the kmitza out, can you put it into the Kli? Can you put it into the Kli on the floor? The Gemara's words just were, you can take the kmitza out from the Kli on the karka. Right? There's really two different processes. One is taking out from the original Kli, and one is that which you took out, putting it into the next Kli. So the Gemara right now is saying that they should be the same. So if I can prove from their conversation that that which you took out, you can put into a Kli on the floor, it should be the same that if the Kli is on the floor originally, I'm allowed to take the kmitza out. As much as the Kohen, again, is supposed to hold it for both steps, you see from their conversation, if you would take it out while it's on the floor, it's still okay. Gemara says, Kanagis bebaydi baylan. Well, that itself is actually a conversation that we had. There would be Avimi Tani Menachos Be'Rev Chista. Okay, so again, we're in Zayin about Aleph, about halfway down the page. First one on the line is Lun. To Rabbi Avimi Tani Menachos be Rav Chisda. So the Gemara says that Rabbi Avimi learned Menachos in the house of Rav Chisda. V'Avimi be Rav Chisda Tani. So the Gemara gets into a little bit of a tangent. Is it true that Avimi really learned in the house of Rav Chisda? Means we say Avimi learned by Rav Chisda, that sounds like who was the Rebbe and who was the Talmud? Avimi or Rav Chisda? Right, because normally what happens, the Talmud, the student goes to the Rebbe. So the Gemara asks, is that true that Rav Avimi was the student of Rav Chisda? V'amar Rav Chisda, but Rav Chisda said, Kulfi tavi bali mavimi. Basically, it means, Rashi translates it as makos rabbos. In other words, he gave me a hard time, Allah da hashmaitza, because of the following sugya, the following conversation. That basically there was a different conversation, there was a contradiction between two different statements, and Rav Chisda suggested the following answer. Bal lahachriz ritzuf and lamed yom. So what the Gemara was talking about was when you're selling the property of orphans, if they have to pay up somebody, so when you're selling their property, so there was one statement that said you should basically announce the price for this many days to try to get the right price, and another one said a different amount of days. So Rav Chisda answered, Bala hachriz ritzufim. If you're going to announce it every day, then you do it for lamed yom. You should do it for 30 days. But if you're doing sheni v'chamishi, if you're only announcing twice a week, you have to do shishim yom, 60 days. So what the Gemara is asking is that if basically Rav Chisda suggested an answer, and Rabbi Avimi gave him a hard time for this answer, the Gemara understands that's really saying that Rabbi Avimi was the Rebbe. So we have a contradiction. On the one hand, Rabbi Avimi learned Menachos by Rav Chisda. That would sound like Rav Chisda is the Rebbe. At the same time, from a different story, it would sound like the opposite. So the Gemara is bothered, who is the Rebbe of who? Okay, so listen to this answer. It's very interesting. The Gemara says, Avimi mesechta is aker le. Gemara says, what? It says, Avimi forgot Meseches Menachos. So therefore, he wanted to go to his student, Rav Chisda, to go learn Menachos. So he came to Rav Chisda so he could remind him. Ask the Gemara, why didn't the Rebbe send a message to the Talmud? I need help with this Masechta. Can you please come to me? Right? It's not the normal thing that the Rebbe goes and travels to the student. Why here the Rebbe travel to the student? So the Gemara answers a very interesting thing. Savar hachi mistai milsatvei. He thought, again, this is Rabbi Avimi, who volunteered to travel to a student, thought maybe I'll have more success if I travel to him. So Rashi says, Rashi's in the second wide line. Rashi says, Mishum yagati umatzasi. So this struck me as very interesting. That's the Gemara in Megillah, which talks about that it says if a person comes and says, I had success in learning and I didn't try hard. So the Gemara says you shouldn't believe him. If he says, I didn't have success and I tried hard, the Gemara says you also shouldn't believe him. If he says, I tried hard and I had success, then you should believe him. So I always understood that meant just very simple. When you're sitting in front of the page, if a person is spacing out, so then if he says that he was successful, you shouldn't believe him. A person, you have to try to focus and you have to try to understand and work and work and work. In this Gemara, you see a fascinating thing. Meaning this tircha, this that he was doing, had nothing to do with the learning itself. Right? This was volunteering to go and travel to your student. You see from the Gemara, it's still going to affect the success that a person is going to have. So like my example I came up with was a person sitting with his chavrusa, and they need to go get a sefer off the shelf. So the person you should want to jump up and go get the sefer. That itself is a schus, that a person will have more success in his learning. It's not just the sitting in front of the page. It's being willing to put out effort, right, on a hot summer afternoon, walking to the Daf Yomi. Right? That itself is the yigiyah for learning Torah itself. Okay, so you have to learn Menachos to see this idea. Okay, so the Gemara picks up back to our original conversation. So Pagabe Rav Nachman. So Rav Nachman bumped into him He bumped into Avimi. Omer le ketzad komtzen. He said, how do you do a kmitza? Tell me what the right way to do a kmitza is. Omer le miklize. He said, from this utensil, just like this one. Omer le v'chi komtzen mikli shal gabe karka. In other words, he pointed to a kli that was on the floor. He said, can you really do it? You can take out a kmitza from the utensil that's on the floor? Amr le, no, the magbi le kohen. It's only okay if the kohen would pick it up. Ketzad mekadchen es ha-menachos. He asked Avimi, and when you get to the next step of taking that which you took out and putting it in the next kli. So how do you do that? Amr le, nos nila kliza. You put it in this kli. Same conversation. Can you really put it into that kli if it's on the floor? No, it's only okay if the Kohen picked it up. So you see from their conversation that basically everyone was in agreement that it's only okay both taking it out and putting it in. That if it's on the floor, it's really not okay. It's only okay if it's being held up by the Kohen. So the Gemara was saying before, Reb Yirmiyah was trying to prove. The question was, why if a non-Kohen takes it out and puts it into a different kli, then it's a problem. But if he puts it back into the original kli, it's okay. So Reb Yirmiyah said, I would have answered that the case of putting it into the original kli was on the floor. And because it was on the floor, it didn't do anything. If they didn't answer that, they must be assuming that both taking it out and putting it back into a kli on the floor is okay. Says the Gemara, but that's really entering into a different conversation we already had, where you see from Rabbi Avimi, that Rabbi Avimi assumed not like that. He assumed that if it's on the floor, it would be a problem, both taking it out and putting it back in. So Amar Le, so he said to him, Im kein hutzrachtu gimel kohanim. It's going to come out, you're going to need 3 kohanim. And he's asking, basically, you'll need 3 kohanim, one to hold each kli, the kli you're taking out from and the kli you're putting into, and another kohen to actually do the kmitza. He seems like he's asking, it's not logical to me that you should need so many kohanim to do this one step. If it was on the floor, so you need 1 kohen. Right? Both klis are on the floor, you need 1 kohen, take it out and put it in. Now that you have to hold it, it's going to come out, you need 3 kohanim. So Amar Le, to hate sricha yud gimel ketamid. It wouldn't bother me even if you need 13, like in the process of the Tamid, that you have it even 13 Kohanim. So he's not bothered by the amount of Kohanim. Okay, the Gemara says Zayin Amar Aleph about 8 lines up from the bottom. Eisvei. Zeh HaKlal. Kol HaKometz V'nosin B'Kli. Anyone who takes out a kmitza and you put it into a kli, Hamolich V'Maktir. The different processes, the person that walks it and the person that burns it up. Lechol Davar Shadarko Lechol. B'Chuli. So what's the Gemara bringing this for? Ilu Magabiyah Lo Katani. That when the Brisa listed the different steps, it never mentioned that the Kohen should pick up the kli before you take it out and before you put it into the next kli. So don't you see from this Brisa that it's okay if it's on the floor? Because the Brisa was describing the process and it never mentioned you have to pick it up. So Tana Seder Avodas Nakat V'la Seder Kohanim. Says no, we're describing the avodas, basically that which is defined as like the main processes. The other details on the side, basically picking it up, is not an avoda itself. So therefore the Brisa wasn't talking about that, so you can't prove from there that if it's on the floor it would be okay. Boy mi nebi the Rav Sheshas. They asked from Rav Sheshas, Mahu likmot miklish al gabe karka. Can a person do a kmitza? Same question. Can a person take out the kmitza from a kli that's right now on the floor? Amr le puk chazi ma'avdin lagav. Let's go figure out what do they do inside the Beis Hamikdash. Arba kohanim nichnasin. We learned that 4 kohanim would go in. Shnayim biyadam beis sedarim. 2 kohanim would be holding. This is talking about the lechem apanim. Lechem apanim was the whole table filled with many loaves of bread, and in the middle was 2 bazikin, which was basically 2 utensils, which was filled up with, I believe, levona, frankincense. So the Gemara says, let's prove from there. 4 kohanim would go in. Shnayim biyadam beisadar. 2 of them would be holding, each one would be holding a stack of the loaves of bread. V'shnayim biyodam shnei bazikim. The other two would be holding these utensils, which would go on the table itself. V'arba makdima lifneim, and 4 other kohanim would come earlier than them. Shnayim litol shnei sedarim, to go and take last week's bread. Ubeis litol beis bazikim, the other two to take the 2 bazikim off at the top of Zayin Amud Beis. Vilu magbiya es hashulchan lo katani. So the Gemara is comparing 2 things. Until now we've been discussing if you have a carbon mincha. So there's 2 steps we were discussing: taking out the original kmitza, and that what you do with the kmitza, putting it into the next kli. Here we're describing a different process of the lechem hapanim, the showbread. Okay, the Gemara is comparing that the bazikim, that utensil which was put on the table, is comparable to the mincha. Basically, when you take off last week's kli from the shulchan, that's going to be like taking out the mincha. Okay? And when you put on the new week's, that's going to be like taking the mincha and putting it into the next kli. So the Gemara is comparing those 2 things. So in this case, by the lechem hapanim, magbiya lo katani, magbiya sashulchan lo katani. It didn't say before you take off this bazikim, this kli, you need to first pick up the table. So too, it would sound like you could take out a kmitza, you could take out from the mincha while the utensil's still on the floor. So where it says lav amrat hasam seder avodas nakar, just like you answered before, that word, just maybe the brisa is just describing that which is the main avoda, the main job. Hachanami seder avodas nakar. So I'll say the same answer here. Maybe the brisa wasn't coming to explain every detail. Says the Gemara, midami, is that comparable? Hasam lo nachas leminyan de kohanim. In the first brisa, we were willing to answer that because there was no, it never said you need this many kohanim. But hachanachas leminyan de kohanim, this brisa said you need 8 kohanim. 4 go in first and take off the stuff, and 4 go in later and put it on. Im isa lisni magbiya. Once you're starting to list how many kohens need to be there, so then it really should have said you need an extra kohen to pick it up. So from this brisa, you could really prove that if you take out from a utensil, from the kli, which is on the floor, it's really okay. Because by the brisa, by the lechem hapanim, by the showbread, it said that you can take off the thing, the bazikim, from the lechem hapanim without picking up the table first. So the Gemara here's that's the same as the person taking out the mincha, the kmitza, from the original mincha. Okay, Amar Rava, about 6 lines down, Zayin Amud Beis. Pshita li kometz mikli shagabe karka, shkein matzino b'silak bazikim. Rava says, I think you could take out the original kmitza from the utensil that's on the floor, because why? You find that when you take off the bazikim, the thing from the lechem hapanim, you do that even though you didn't pick up the table. And mekadshin mincha bekli shagabe karka shkein matzino b'sidr bazikim. And the next step, after you took it out, the mincha, the kmitza, I think you can also put it into a kli that's on the floor. Because the next person that puts the bazikim, that thing on the lechem hapanim, he also doesn't have to pick up the table before he puts it on. So putting that on the lechem hapanim is like the kmitza that you took out, putting that into the next kli. So both of those I can prove. Boi Rava, kiddush kometz mai. What about being makadesh the kometz? Sorry, 1 second. Okay, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Let's go back 1 line. Pshita li kometz mikli shagabe karka. You can originally take it out from a kli that's on the floor. When you take off the bazikim, that's like taking out the original kmitza. Mekadshin mincha, the original putting the materials into the kli, says Rava, that you could also do. Putting the bazikim, that kli, onto the lechem hapanim, Rava says that's like putting the original materials into the kli sharis to start the mincha process, the first step. But by Rava, kiddush kometz mai. What about after you took it out, putting it into a new utensil? That we never find you do by the lechem hapanim process. So Rava says the other 2 I could prove. But that which you took out, can you put it while the kli's on the floor? That I can't prove from the lechem hapanim process. So what's the halacha? Mi mincha yalfin Allah? Do we learn from a mincha? Or midam yalfinan la? Basically, do I learn, just like when you're putting in the mincha, it's okay if it's on the floor. So too, that which you took out, you can put it into the next kli that's on the floor. Or maybe you learn it from dam, that just like if you shecht, when the kohen is makabel the dam, when he collects all the blood into the kli, there we know that the kohen actually has to pick it up. It wouldn't be enough if the kli was on the floor. Basically, we have two cases which are very similar to that which you took out, putting it in. So on the one hand, maybe it's like the mincha, that it's okay if the kli is on the floor, or maybe it's more like the process of when you're shechting the blood that goes into the kli. We know it has to be picked up. The Gemara compares basically the step of putting the kmitza into the next step to the kabbalas adam, to accepting the blood into the kli. So maybe we should really learn from there that it's a problem. So Hadar Pashta, so Rava answered, Midam Yalfinan La. I think we should really learn from the process of kabbalas adam, accepting the blood, that it's a problem. Ask the Gemara, Miyamar Rava Hachi, did Rava really say that? Va'itmar, but we learned, Komet Shecholku B'shnei Kelim. Let's say that which you took out, you didn't put into one place. You split it into two different utensils. Rav Nachman Amar Eino Kaddish. Rav Nachman says it's no good. Rava Amar Kaddish. Rava says it is good. Ask the Gemara, V'im Isa, if Rava really learns from, just like whatever you do when you're accepting the blood by a shchita, that should teach me what to do when the kmitza you took out, putting it into the next kli. So lilif midam. So why don't you learn that from dam? And basically over there we know that all the blood needs to be into one utensil. So if you can really learn the mincha from the blood, so then it should come out that we should really learn that just like by the blood, if it's in two separate klis, it's a problem. So if the kmitza is in two separate klis, it's a problem. My answer is Hadar Bei Rava Me'ahi. Gemara says you're right, that Rava really does learn from dam, and Rava changed his mind. He really holds that if you put it in two separate utensils, it is a problem because you learned it out from the process of kabbalas adam. Okay, the Gemara asks, V'dam minolon de lo kodesh lechatzoin. Where did we find this conversation that when a person's shechting and you're doing the process of accepting the blood from the animal, where did we find somebody say that if you put it into two separate utensils, it's a problem? Titani Rav Tachlifa ben Shol. We learned from Rav Tachlifa ben Shol, Kidesh pachas mechdei hazah beklize. If you did a little bit less, meaning not the amount which is needed for the next step of sprinkling the blood. If you did a little bit less than that in one kli, pachas mechdei hazah beklize, and you did a little bit less than the amount in another kli, lo kidesh, it's no good. So that's where we found somebody discussing. We didn't know who said it. So we found somebody say that when it comes to kabbalas adam, accepting the blood, all the amount of blood that you need, all needs to be in one utensil. And they had a question, B'dam mai. Why is it true by kabbalas adam, when you're accepting the blood, that it all needs to be in one kli? Is it hilchasahi? Is it something we have, halach l'moshe Sinai, we have a Masorah, tradition, umehilchasa lo yalfina? And if the source of it would be because we have a tradition, so then you wouldn't be able to learn it out anywhere besides where it was said. Odilma hasamai time b'dechsiv taval b'mayim. Hachanami haksiv v'taval badam. Maybe the source is that when the pasuk says v'taval badam, we understand that it means you need to have the whole shear, the whole amount of blood in one kli. And basically, if this would be the source, then you would have the right to learn it outside of where it was said, and you would be able to learn a mincha from dam. The itmar amar abzeka amar ebelazar af bedam lo kidesh. So we have this is going back to the original point. We have another person with a statement that says when you're makabel the dam, when you accept the blood, if you have less than the shear in one kli, you don't have the full amount in one kli, it's no good. Amar Ravatani nami hachi. We also learned it in a brisa. So Rava is going to be explaining a pasuk. So Rava says, V'taval, the pasuk is V'taval, below maspig, to the exclusion of being maspig. Rashi says, what does maspig mean? It means you wipe your finger on the edge of the utensil. So we'll see in a little bit exactly what he's talking about. The next part of the pasuk is bedam. That teaches me sheyeh bedam shir tvila mi ikara. That which we're talking about a shchita. So we're saying after you accept all the blood, these are certain halachas needed for basically the utensil that holds the blood. There's certain requirements. So the second one is saying that in that kli, you need to have the entire amount. Is shir tvila mikar. You have to the entire amount of blood in one utensil. So this is the same thing that we were quoting before. So Rabbi says, I see it in the Braisa. That you need the entire amount of blood in one utensil. Min hadam. The pasuk says from the blood. Min hadam shebe inyan. So the Gemara doesn't understand what this means yet. So let's hold on. So the Gemara says v'itzrich lemichta v'taval. So we have three different psukim coming to say different halachas about the kli. This kli which is filled with the blood after you shechted. There's different rules that it needs to have. The first one was that basically when the Kohen, when he dips his hand before he sprinkles, he has to dip his hand inside. He can't dip it on the edge, any blood that was on the side. The second was that the kli needs to contain within it the entire amount of blood. And the third, the Gemara is going to clarify exactly what it means. Ve'itzrich lemichta v'taval, ve'itzrich lemichta v'dam. So the Gemara is bothered, why do I need all three different psukim? What is each one coming to teach me? Because of Rachmana v'taval, if we just had the first pasuk, have a mina afa gavdelo kibol shir tvilos, mi ikaro. I would think that the first pasuk just said you have to dip your hand inside of the kli. You can't dip it on the side. So I was said, okay, but who says I need to have all the blood in one place? So kasav Rachmana b'dam. Therefore the Torah said the other pasuk, which came to teach you that you need all the sheer blood, the entire amount, in one kli. Because of Rachmana b'dam, hava mina filu maspik. If it just said the second pasuk, so I would have said, yeah, you need to have all the blood inside the utensil. But who says you have to dip your finger inside? Maybe you could dip your finger to a little bit of blood that's on the side. Because Rachmana v'taval. Therefore the Torah had to say the first one. So now we know you need all the blood in one kli, plus before the Kohen sprinkles, he has to stick his finger inside the kli. Nothing on the side. Min hadam shebe'inyan lamutei mai. What is the third thing that the Braisa described? What is that coming to exclude? Amarav lamuti shirayim shebe'etzba. It's coming to say that basically, what would the Kohen do? He would dip his finger, he would sprinkle. Now there's probably a little bit of blood left over. Okay, so is that blood in his finger, is that good? And therefore he can just dip it back in and sprinkle again? Or is that blood really no good, which will mean he'll have to wipe his hand off before he sticks it back in? So the Gemara says that third part of the Braisa is coming to say that is no good. It's lim'uti shirayim shebe'etzba. It's coming to exclude the leftovers on his finger, that it's no good. Mesayle le'Rebbe Elazar damer shirayim shebe'etzba psulim. It's a proof, or it's another person like the opinion of Rebbe Elazar, who said that the leftovers on your finger is no good. Amr le Ravan v'Ravada le Rava. Amri Talmidach. Amr Rav Amram. Your student said in the name of Rav Amram, Tanya haya maze v'nitze hazos miyado. If the Kohen was sprinkling the blood, and some splattered on his clothes. Okay, so the halacha is something which basically has the status of good blood to be sprinkled, the Kohen would have to wash his clothes. Something that doesn't have good status of blood to be sprinkled, so then if it spills on him, he doesn't have to do anything. So what's the halacha? Im ad shelo hizeh, if it's before he sprinkled, so that blood was proper to be sprinkled, then tohen kibus. The Kohen's going to have to wash his clothes. But misha hizeh, if it's already after he sprinkled, ein tohen kibus, then he doesn't need to go wash his clothes. So the question's going to be, what about the case where he did the first sprinkle, he's got a little bit left over, let's say that spilled on his clothes. So in other words, we're having a conversation right now, what's the status of that blood? Is that blood something which is okay? Kohen can dip his finger in and use that? Or does he need to wipe that off and start over? So we're trying to prove it from this conversation that says if good blood fell into the Kohen, then he needs to wash his clothes. If blood which is no good fell into the Kohen, then he doesn't need to wash his clothes. So my lav achelo gomer hazaso, mishe gomer hazaso. Isn't the proper way to read it as long as you haven't finished, as long as you haven't finished the last sprinkle, any blood would be a problem. Shema mina the shiraim shebetz b'ksherim. And if that would be the way to read the brisa, it would be saying any blood that's spilled into the Kohen during the sprinkling process is a problem. When is it not a problem? After he finished all the sprinkles. So if that would be the right way to read it, it would be saying that the extra blood that was on his finger in between each sprinkles was really good blood. Just like the blood that was supposed to be sprinkled if it fell on him, that's what requires to wash your clothes. So if the right way to read the brisa is that the only time it's not a problem is once you're finished, it would sound like even the leftovers in between each sprinkle is also. Where it says lo achelo yatzda miyado hazah ton kibus, you could read it differently. You could read it until the blood went off your hand, so you have a little dropper in your hand. Before you sprinkled it, that's when you need to wash your clothes because that blood was fit to be sprinkled. But mishiyatza hazas miyado. But after you did the first hazah, you sprinkled it off your hand, so you have a little leftovers, v'nitze, mimashinishar, and that which was left over fell onto the clothes. Then ein ton kibus, that doesn't require to wash your clothes. So in other words, the Gemara thought it was better to read it that it's only not a problem if you finished, which would have proved the blood on your finger in the middle would be kosher. Where it says, no, you could read the brisa the other way to answer for the opinions that would say the blood on your finger in the middle of the sprinkles is really a problem. Okay, the first white liner on the bottom of Zayin Beis. Eisve Abaye. Abaye asked the question, Gomer milahazos mekaneach yodo begufa shel para. So we're talking now about para aduma. Once you've finished the sprinkles, you should wipe off your hand. The Kohen or the person doing it should wipe off his hand on the para aduma itself. So it says Gomar in. Sounds like if you finished all the sprinkles, you should wipe off your hand. Lo Gomar lo. Sounds like if you didn't yet finish, there's no reason to wipe off your hand. So if you'll tell me that the blood from in between each sprinkle is no good, then really you have to wipe your hand in between each sprinkle. So I'm like Gomar mekaneach yodo. He said, no, you can't prove it from that brisa. It said, when you finish, wash your whole hand. Lo gomer mekaneach etzbo. When you don't finish, you don't have to wipe your whole hand. You have to wipe your finger. So you were trying to prove it didn't talk about in between each sprinkle. The answer is it was only talking about when you have to wipe your whole hand. Wiping your finger, it was never talking about. So bishlama gomer mekaneach yada begufa shel para. This is like a practical question. When you finished, I understand how you're going to wipe your hand on the para, which basically means when you're finished, you're going to be standing in the same place as the cow, and therefore you'll be right there to wipe your hands on the cow. But while you're doing the sprinkles, you do the sprinkles in a place that the cow's not even there. So how are you supposed to wipe your hand on the cow? She says it's like down a mountain. It's not logical that each time you do the sprinkle, you're going to travel down, wipe your hand off, and go back up. So just practically, where are you supposed to do it? Rabbi Bisfas Mizrak, Kidechsev Kippur Ezav. She says you should do it on the edge of the kli, that's basically you're sprinkling from. So when you're finished the whole process, you actually wipe your hand on the cow itself. In between, if you hold that the in-between blood is no good, so you would actually wipe it on the sides of the kli that you're sprinkling from. Okay, maybe we'll hold over here.
You still have blood in the fingers.